Hello everyone, and welcome to day 4 of our California trip. Let's see what we're doing today. So yesterday we arrived here. We started from the foothills of the Sierra Nevada in the south, and we flew all the way across the range to land here in Mammoth Yosemite Airport. Today we'll depart from here, a short 94 miles hop to Lake Tahoe, one of the most famous airports in California when it comes to smaller airports. Quite a lot of elevation, pretty much the same as Mammoth. There we're going to be above 6,000 feet, so a high altitude, but there's a very long runway, so it won't be a problem at all. Now, from this stream, I guess we won't do a detailed cold and dark as we were doing before. We'll just do a quicker one. I'll just have to do all the actions, all the switches, just because of the way the TBM works, but I won't explain everything in the details. Refer to the video, the part 1 and part 2, if you want to see the startup a little bit more in details. But let's do this quick. Now open payload, close all the doors, remove all the covers, and let's get going. Quick check that all the switches are where they're supposed to be. Everything in the off position. You just put the oxygen on. Everything else is off. Down here, everything is off. Circuit breakers are all in. Aircon on. Sorry, aircon off now. We turn the engine on. Here it's all good. We have the chocks. Perfect. Everything is off. Down. Closed. All good. So let's get crash bar up and source on battery. See if we have enough battery to start. Or we need a GPU. Let it initialize, just a few seconds. I've already loaded the payload and the fuel. So we're all good to go. Let's see, battery, we have nearly 26, so above 24.5, we're good. As we seen yesterday, the manual says 24.5. Should be enough to start, but we had problems, it was very sluggish, so I would suggest to be above 25.5 from what I've seen. That's it, let's get started. Put the auxiliary pump on. Starter to on. There we go.
System test. Okay.
Monitor closely. We're rising above 13. Start the timer. Thrust on low idle. NG is rising. ITC is. There we go. 30% by 30 seconds. And then 50%. Put the generator to main. So we start powering the batteries now that we reached the green. Perfect. Now we have enough power to actually power the fuel pump. So this one, the auxiliary, can go to auto. Stable at 55. Let's put fuel selector to auto. Autopilot trims to nav and strobe. And we're good. Put to light idle. Make sure we set the parking brakes when we release the chocks. Lead is on. Aircon is on. Inertia separator goes on now. Just configure the screens quickly. That's all done. Stop the timer. Perfect. PFD, bring up bearing 1, we'll put it on GPS, and then bearing 2, we'll put it on nav 8, as we'll finish with a different approach. Inertial separator is on. Good. Let's go onto the map here. Bring up the flight plan. We delete what we have there and we'll put it in together, delete flight plan, and we'll just enter it together. There we go. So first waypoint. Is going to be Tioga, Tango, India, Oscar, Golf, Alpha. There we go. Always check that it makes sense. 33 miles from here. The track of 291, we're going northwest, so that's good. Then we take the airway J5, so menu, load airway J5. If you don't see the point here, like here we have tilt, it's not there, means there is stuff above. You can scroll back up, you have tilt there. Load tilts. Then after that we go directly to Kings. Kilo, India, November, Sarah. Yeah, Southwest. Yeah, New Zealand, Australia. Not quite sure we'll have enough fuel for that. Good. And then direct to KTVL, so Tango, Victor, Lima, South Lake Tahoe. Still cannot pronounce that properly, but. And then as approach, today I thought, as yesterday we did an RNAV, here we have two options. We have either an RNAV that takes you down all the way with its RNAV descent path to 2.6 miles from the runway, but I thought that wouldn't be fun. We've done it yesterday, so what we'll do is the second approach, which is called LDA. It's a localizer approach without glide path, so it's not an ILS, it's just a localizer. So you arrive with RNAV here in Kings, and then you take the localizer 108.9, course of 171, and go all the way down to 4.3 miles from the runway. So you're offset and you don't get quite there. So it takes you to Wuguk here, and then well, pretty much on your own to get down to the runway. And I thought we'll do that. And the glide path starts here. Well, you need to self-manage that path. So we get 9,500, then we'll intercept this and start the descent to 3.03, slightly steeper than normal. We have all the references here, and we can calculate them as well, so it's not a problem. So I thought we'll do that. We press then procedure, we select approach, we select LDA, runway 18. On vectors, because FMG is a waypoint, the VOR, this VOR that you can see here, but we're coming from the south, so there's no need to go all the way to FMG, and SWR is here to the west. Just put vectors. Minimums, we set it on Barrow 9,500. The minimums are here, which is basically from Fabric. If you're not visual by this waypoint, you need to abort. And let's say primary frequency is already set there, so load. Make sure you don't activate. Activate is only if you there straight away. I will check the flight plan quickly. Starting from here, flying west to Tioga, go north, tilts, Kings, and then we will go and intercept this vector. There we go, perfect. It's all set. Let's set the altitude. The altitude as per flight plan is going to be 24,000. We can do that while we taxi. We have a little bit taxi to do. There we go. Release the parking brake. Taxi lights on. Nav and strobe are on. And we're good to go. Chocks off. Brakes off. There we go. Taxi range as usual. There's no wind, so we're just going to go and take off from runway 27, and we're nearly exactly on the GPS path to take. So we can do the last few things as we taxi. As we said, cruise altitude 24,000 feet. Runway headings, departing from 27 is going to be 274. There we go. Heading 274, and we're good. It's a very long runway here. We're not gonna need it all. We'll just take off from Alpha 2. As I'm here, I'm just going to set the trims. We normally set that the rudder, all the trims will go in the green band. But I don't know if it's a mistake with the simulation here or with the model, but if I put the rudder on the green, it pulls terribly to the right. So let's experiment something today. I'll leave it centered and see what happens. It makes sense. It's a single prop. So it makes sense that you would start with the rudder on one side, of course, to contrast the effect of the airflow generated by the prop, which is quite powerful here. So I guess it would be quite a lot of correction, but I'm not quite sure that's simulated correctly. So we'll see what happens if we leave it new. There we go. We come to a stop here, short of runway 27. Finished a few bits, and we'll get going. Parking brake is on. Pitot heats. Come on. Landing light on. Up here, nothing else. Over here, check that everything is correct. So QNH is standard as it is today. 24,000 altitude, 274. We can see the autopilot is not activated, so we press here. Toga go around button. Flight director appears. Take off, take off. We're going to Toga. So we check as well that we are active. Sometimes if you start programming the flight plan very far from the runway, the first waypoint, instead of being the actual first waypoint, will be the runway itself. So as you taxi, then you need to make sure as you arrive close to the runway that switches. So now you have runway to the first waypoint here on the track. That's all good there. Transponder, as we said, no traffic today, we're not on VATSIM or anything, so we're not going to use it. And then we check the CAS system, so crew advisory system here, parking brake and inertia separator, the only two things we want to see. Flaps go down to take off. Batteries are okay, generator is charging, and double check here as well, electrical system, and check on the fuel panel. We have what we need, 105, and we're good. Amps are good, everything else is in the green, and we can get going. Brakes off. There we go. Line up. Come to a stop. Bring the torque up until the prop RPM is in the small green band at the end, around 2000 RPM. There we go. Everything in the green. Release back and release brake. Throttle up. See? Yeah, it was slightly to the left, but a lot better. Actually. Perfect. There we go. Wait for 90. Rotate. Big tap of the brake. Gear up. Onto the flight director. There we go. So let's try vertical speed. Bring that down as usual. Around 1300. Above 115. Flaps up. Set heading. Select heading. Try and be onto the flight directors nicely and trimmed. But once you activate the autopilot, it doesn't swerve too much. So your damper, autopilot on. And there we go, nice and smooth. At this point, let's try VNAV. The GPS path is very close, so if we press nav, it might intercept it already. Yeah, there we go, automatically. GPS is there. Vertical speed. Check the torque. And we're good. Try and keep 170 as usual on the way up. Instead of doing the flight change, we'll manage it with vertical speed. It's probably the way you should do it anyway. So pitch up a little, increase the vertical speed to maintain 170. There we go. You can turn the inertia separator off. And do be careful, we're already at 91. Now the inertia separator is off. This will increase. Very important landing field elevation. That is all set. It's taken now from the FMC, from the plan. KTVL 6200. It is very important because the aircraft simulates pressure. So you can definitely have problem with pressure. And you can damage as well the cabin if it's not pressurized correctly. You can damage the vessel, as it calls it, so the cabin, the pressurization. And you can service it, but you cannot replace it because it's the whole body of the aircraft. So if you damage that too much, then you just scrap your airplane. And that happens a lot if you do repositioning. Like when you start on map and you start from sea level and then you decide to move your airplane to 30,000 feet all of a sudden, that will definitely damage the airframe. What I normally do, you want to, like for this series for example, I'm taking photos for the cover sometime. And I built another airframe and I use that to do all those repositionings and moving it around. If I risk damage anything, if I do anything but flying perfectly as I should, I just use another airframe and I keep the main correctly. This is quite beautiful. But let's not get too distracted. We need to constantly monitor the torque and the temperature there. We're climbing, so we need to reduce the vertical speed a little. Quite noisy, let's put the headset on. Landing lights can go off now. Standing here. Temperature is good, 700, so we can push it a little bit. Ooh, 100, that was a lucky win, Russell. Let's have a look at the plan. We are even here. What is it? You can press view. You can do cumulative, so it gives you the distance leg to leg, or cumulative. So we are 95 miles from Kings. Now this is not accurate because it basically considers Kings that going to the airport and then going back to Kings. Technically, we could activate it already, so if you'll have a look at the plan now. That's what the plan is doing. Now we're into Tioga, then we go up, Sonny, Tilts, going to Kings, and it is considering going back and coming back to Kings. So what we can do now, actually, we could potentially activate the approach already. Let's get up to cruise speed, and then we'll be able to activate the approach straight away. It's a straight line anyway, so. You can always check the pressurization here. Cabin pressurization here. We are pushing. There's a torque, so the temperature is rising. 750 now. Try and not go above 760. Nearly there, 2,000 feet to go. Now the VOR, the localizer is 108.9. Should tune it automatically when we set the approach. Otherwise you could tune it here. Let's see if it does it automatically. There we go, 24,000 feet. Keep it around 90%. We're not, temperature is quite high, so we're not going to push it much more. Around 17 minutes from Kings. Nice. Nice area to do a bit of looking out the window. Ooh, wow. Okay, let's check if we have the enough path available. Reason because we haven't activated the approach yet, so we don't have any speeds here, any altitude selected here. So the VNAV profile is not coming up. Let's see what happens if we activate the approach from here now. Going to Kings anyway. The first phase of the approach is Kings. There shouldn't be any harm in activating it now. Let's go on procedure. If we can activate the approach. There we go. So now we're going direct, as you can see here, direct to Kings. We disregarded everything that was before. Everything else is there. We're going now, you can see the magenta arrow there, we're going directly to Kings. As Kings had the altitude there, now the VNAV profile is populated. So we're planning on being at 12,400 feet at Kings with a flight path angle of 2.5. As we said, we normally prefer 3%, 3 degrees, sorry. Just gonna go down there, select 3, and at the top of the descent is at 5 minutes from now, and that's good. Remember, select the altitude, 1,400, and there we go. Next step will be the turn at Kings. And from here, from Yukov, at that point from Yukov we should intercept the localizer. Yukov is supposed to be at 10,200 feet, and then Fabik 9,500 feet. So here we're losing 2,200 feet. So rule of the times 3, we need 6.6 miles, and we have 8, that's good. And then we need to lose 700 feet here, and we have 2.9 miles, so that's all good. Then from 9,500 there, we need to go down to touchdown, altitude there 6,259. We'll need to lose 3,240 feet. 3,240 feet in 9.5, so 3,200 times 3 is 9,000, 9.6. 9.6 miles, so that's why this is, we have 9.5 instead of 9.6, a little less, that's why it's 3.03. But it's fine, 0.1 miles, not a very big problem. So here we have a chart of the descent angle based on your ground speed. Luckily here, because of the Garmin, we have the ground speed here, so it's very easy to monitor that. We don't have a way to tell the airplane to descend at that path angle once we disconnect the autopilot. But we're gonna do it manually. It's nice to see how you manage that manually. As long as you monitor your ground speed, we're all gonna be good. This is a simple calculation that you can do yourself. This is the generic rule is 5 times your ground speed. In effect is actually 5.3 if you want to be precise. So you can calculate yourself. In this case it's just because it's 3.3 degrees, 3.03 is just a little higher, but it's negligible. So 170 times 5.3, that would be 900. You can see there is roughly 100 feet per minute every 20 knots. So that's easy to manage. We're now 1 minute from top of descent.
Vertical track.
Try and activate VNav. Yeah, we have it. VPath, vertical path in white. Check that it doesn't disappear. It shouldn't. I think it resets if you pass a waypoint once it's activated. But we're not. We're going straight to Kings, so okay. And this is not really visible, I don't use it very often. Can't really read that properly. So the airport should be somewhere here on the south shore. There we go. There's the airport. Unfortunately here there's a missing tile because we are really at the boundaries of California at the limit. So this tile here on the northeastern corner of the lake is missing. So you see this is Ortho scenery and that is default. But it's fine, where we go in we have Ortho scenery. You can see we started the V-path already while I was enjoying the panorama. Reduce the speed a little. It's quite a steep turn that we're going to do as well, so don't want to be too fast there. You can see there. There's still 33 miles, so not in a rush to slow down either. Of course, remember if you're flying with normal meteorological condition, make sure that you check your QNH. Still high, but 18,000 feet, you'll check your QNH. I believe vertical path will stop at 12,400 feet. That's why magenta here, because it's cartoon here on the flight plan. So I believe, hope I'm not going to be proven wrong, but I believe we can set already the next altitude. I set already 10,000. At that point it should be quicker than do the next step. Save that little bit of scrolling. Good, as you can see, now we did activate the approach and it's auto-tuned the localizer. (108.9), 108.9. If closer to it, it should auto-tune the course as well. Let's see what happens. .250, we're quite fast. Remember, 266 is the maximum speed. And Explain doesn't do a bad job of the autogen. As you can see, this is all default. Especially the colors are quite good, but Ortho is just a different word. The profile, especially the profiles of the mountain, are incredible, and Explain is way too gentle time. Coming up to our turn, so let's start to slow down.
Vertical track.
Bottom of descent with him. It's good. Just check the QNH, just in case, you know. That's another airport, but yeah, it's all standard. There we go, 1013, yeah. Try and keep around 180. So we're ready then for the first notch of flaps. Next step, VPath 10,200. It's already set here, so that's good. Yeah, we stopped at 12,400. We can preset it in 30 seconds. So let's activate VNav again. It's already there, it's already automatic. It stays in VNav path. It will now wait to intercept the other one. You can see the magenta sign is here. And we're all good. Now Yukov. So from Yukov we should be able to intercept the localizer. We'll get back on our GPS track and then we'll see if we can intercept the localizer. We picked up the course in the meantime, so that's good. So we needed 108.9 tuned, and we have it tuned, nav 1 and nav 2, the course 171. The course is auto-tuned as well. Now we're in a good position to intercept the localizer. Unfortunately, there is no way to check the localizer without the autopilot reverting to that mode. So if you were to now press on CDI here to change this onto the localizer, the autopilot might swerve left and right to follow what you're doing. So once we're here now, well, first of all, let's set the next altitude. It's going to be 9,500. So we have that ready, and we don't forget. And now let's revert to heading. Press the center of the heading knob, make sure that that's same heading as we're going. Revert the autopilot to heading, and now we can press CDI there in the middle to check the localizer. That will get rid of the VPath though. Localizer 1, the course is 056, so we change that to 171, and now we're off to the left, so we need to go and intercept it. In the meantime, it's better if we keep descending. We put vertical speed. Let's reduce the power, start to slow down. Yeah, let's take the altitude down, go all the way down to the airport. So let's put 6,000 feet selected there. We are intercepting the localizer, so as you can see I turned the heading to go and intercept the localizer, and now we can put the autopilot back onto nav. We always put it to nav. There is no localizer button like in airliners, because you select it by selecting here the CDI. So CDI switches you between localizer 1, localizer 2, or GPS. Now we're on the localizer. Now that we're right on the localizer heading for the runway that you can see there, we need to check if we are correct. Minimums, we can see the airport, so we can continue. We need to check if we're correct in terms of altitude. We're now coming up to Tazap, should be at 8,800. So we are high. Let's start to slow down. Talk back. We are 2.5 miles from Bogok, then we'll have to disconnect there, put the gear down. We can see one red there, we're ever so slightly high. No, 2 red and 2 white, so we're good. But 1 notch of flaps. Keep slowing down. And then now remember the rule, 5.3 your speed. So 160. So 800, 840 feet per minute, so we can shallow out that descent. There we go, 800 feet per minute. Very good, so we can disconnect the autopilot. Disconnect it from here and continue manually. Reduce the speed, shallow out a little bit. I can see 3 red there. We're doing 130 knots. So that will be 650 feet per minute. And now by 50 to recapture. There we are, below 122. We put the last notch of flaps. Watch for that balloon. Make sure you adjust the throttle, start losing very quickly. Oh, we didn't put the landing lights on. Or the inertial separator. Bit late to put that one, but we'll manage that as well. Deactivate the flight directors, they're just distracting us. There we go, 2 white, 2 red. 95. Good speed. Bring it back to 85 as usual. Tends to be TBM
500.
Well, here at least in the simulation, it tends to be very flat when it lands. So we need to try and dash down below 80. Otherwise it's too flat. There we go, we're now doing 94 knots. We need 500 feet per minute. Descent. Very long runway. Definitely have lots of space to reduce the speed. So we start to flare, bring back the throttle, beat that speed.
Airspeed.
There we go. Reverse it. There we go, back to taxi range. Just a little bit of brakes. And there we are. Welcome to Lake Tahoe. There we go. Not familiar with this place. Let's see where we can go and park. Wow, that's busy. Ooh. Okay, let's go next to the caravan. Flaps go up now. Pitot off. Landing lights go to taxi. Probe goes off. If we had the weather radar, we'd turn it down off now, but I believe again it's automatic here. Put it back on standby. Might be a bit too close. Oopsie. Too busy here. We'll stop here and then we'll use our little trolley to adjust it. There we go. Set the parking brake. Mirror separator off. Leads off. Aircon off. There we go. Fast to low idle. Let it stabilized. And we're good. Make sure everything is off. All the lights are off. Oxygen off. And the crash bar can go down. And there we are. Beautiful. There we are in Lake Tahoe. Next leg will see us departing from here and another relatively short hop to Ortho Municipal Airport. So we'll cross the mountains, we go back on the other side of the mountains into Ortho Municipal Airport. For today, thank you very much for joining me again. I hope you've enjoyed the flight and I hope I'll get to see you on the next leg. Thank you very much and bye now.